the Jets at the Vikings. Who would have dreamed the Jets would be 7-4? Who would have dreamed the Vikings would be 9-2? And hey, look, the Vikings defense is not good statistically. Yes, they're 9-2. Yes, they tend to step up when it matters most, like they did last Thursday night against the Patriots. The last couple of drives of the game, they found a way to make a stop when they couldn't make a stop all night. The Jets' defense is good enough to shut down the Minnesota offense. The question is, can the Jets' offense do enough to take advantage of a bad Minnesota defense? And you can make the argument that the Jets can, Peter.
Look, I think the way the Jets' defense has played so far this year, they can play with anybody. The question is, as you say, is Mike White going to be able to be consistent enough with that offense with not much of a running game? Is he going to be able to be consistent enough with a real young offense and young offensive weapons? They basically need a couple of very young players, Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, to be big in this game in Minnesota. Because, look, with the weapons the Vikings have, and look, I think, we talk about what's fun about this weekend. I want the ISO cameras every time Justin Jefferson is on Sauce Gardner. I mean, if I'm doing that game, if I'm the producer in that game, I am devoting one camera the entire game to Justin Jefferson. And every time that he's on Sauce Gardner, I want the replay of that after the play. That's how great a matchup and how fun a matchup that is. So, Mike, there's so many reasons why this is a really cool game, a fun game, and that's certainly one of them, Jefferson against the Sauce.
Sauce Gardner, the prohibitive favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He has shown that he has coverage skills, but when you face Justin Jefferson, you better have ball skills too. You may have him covered, he's still going to go get the ball, and no matter how hard you hit him or he hits the ground, he's not losing possession of the ball once he gets it. And obviously Sauce Gardner has not seen anyone like Justin Jefferson in his rookie NFL season. So that should be a great game. How about the Commanders at the Giants? The Commanders 2.5-point road favorites against the New York Giants. Giants 7-4, Commanders 7-5. It feels like these teams are moving in different directions, which helps explain why the Commanders are favorites away from home. Yeah, the Giants have just kind of been in a funk lately, Peter. Do you see them snapping out of it? Was there anything that you saw last Thursday against the Cowboys that gives you confidence they can snap out of it?
The one thing I saw against the Cowboys is that they battled. I mean, for them to be ahead in that game at halftime, even though that was sort of a Scott Novak special, there were more flags than points. It was a ridiculously flag-filled game. The fact is, they now have lost consecutive weeks decisively by the time the game was over to Detroit and to Dallas. And if they lose this game to Washington this week, for all the hullabaloo about the New York Giants, if Washington beats the Giants on Sunday, the New York Giants will be in sole possession of last place in the NFC East. Remember 3 weeks ago, we're all saying, oh, God, the Giants are a cinch for the playoffs. Well, then they lost to Detroit, and then everybody started looking at the schedule down the stretch, which ain't easy. And so I think I look at this and I say, Mike, what said a lot to me, quite honestly? It said a lot to me that the NFL, in flexing Miami at the Chargers for next Sunday night, do you know what game they bypassed? The Giants and the Eagles.
Which one? Giants-Eagles. Yes.
They bypassed the Giants and the Eagles. Now, normally, would you say that bypassing the best team in the NFC against a rising division rival that has shocked the world this year and is 7-4, does that make any sense at all? Really? Does it make any sense? it says to me the NFL thinks that the Giants' elevator button is going down and it's an express. And so that, to me, the Giants can reverse that. The Giants can beat Washington on Sunday and again prove to the world you don't know what you're talking about. But we're going to have to see that to believe it's Sunday in the Meadowlands.
Yeah, also sacrificing the top market in the country, too. Another reason to consider that game. But you're right, the NFL picking a game that will be more exciting, and that's the way that the flex should be. Mike Tirico said this on the SI Media podcast this week with Jimmy Traina. The whole idea of flexing should be to put the best possible game for the benefit of the fans in prime time, and all other factors should take a back seat to that. You and I both know, Peter, that sometimes they don't for a variety of reasons, but it should be the best possible game. And in that case, Chargers-Dolphins, a better game than Giants-Eagles, even if Giants-Eagles possibly could deliver a better overall viewership for the contest. All right, let's take a break. When we return, the Titans face the Eagles. Another great game to be played, and A.J. Brown getting a chance at revenge against the team that traded him. More PFG Live right after this.
Of course, I've come to peace about it. I'm with the Eagles. We're 10-1. We're doing a really good job here. Of course, early on, I had mixed emotions, but I changed my family life forever. That was the goal. So I'm thankful for Tennessee, but I'm here in Philly now. When you go through things in this league, you learn that it's a business. Of course, early on, and I wanted to try to finish my career tight, and I think I made that. I stated that, but I learned that it's a business, and you got to do what's best, because they're going to do what's best for them. So when you grow up.
One of the big surprises during the first round of the 2022 draft, the Titans sending A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles as he entered a contract year. They didn't want to pay him big money. The Eagles were happy to do it and give up a first-round pick to do so. The Titans select receiver Treylon Burks, who has begun in recent weeks to round into the form that they need him to. He's fought through some injuries. But A.J. Brown, look, he has sent, I think, some mixed signals about whether he wanted out or whether they decided to trade him. It is unconventional to scratch off a lottery ticket and trade it in for another lottery ticket instead of paying the player and keeping the player. That's why you use first-round draft picks, to get a guy who's going to become part of your nucleus, part of your foundation, and you do have to pay him a second contract. That's part of the price you pay for having a great player in round one. But that's what the Titans decided to do, and now they get to see A.J. Brown and the rest of the Eagles. Great matchup. 7-4 Titans coming off of a loss that many expected would not occur to the Bengals, especially after the postseason loss to Cincinnati last year. At the Eagles, 10-1. Eagles still 4.5-point favorites, Peter. I feel a level of desperation from Mike Vrabel and company for this one. Look, the Eagles don't have a huge cushion in their division. They definitely don't have a huge cushion in the race for the number one seed in the NFC. But, the Titans, yeah, they're going to win their division, but you don't want to be the 4 seed if you can avoid it and have to play the best number 2 seed, the best number 2 team in one of the other divisions when it's time to get to the playoffs. You want to be higher in the pecking order, and the Titans are in danger of losing that if they keep losing games.
I just thought of exactly what you were saying, Mike, about games like this and why they're important for Tennessee. I mean, just let's project into the future for the third weekend of January. Tennessee's home. They're the 4 seed. And here come the Miami Dolphins. Do you really want that? Do you really want that? And so, hey, look, or might be the Buffalo Bills, so do you really want that? I don't think you want that, and so I think the one thing about this game that is so interesting, and I know that everybody will talk about the A.J. Brown factor, and I'm going to say one thing about the A.J. Brown factor. Mike, do you remember back to draft night and draft weekend when, you saw, and look, Mike Vrabel is one of those guys, the old cliche, keeps his cards close to the vest, okay? But didn't you sense on draft weekend that Mike Vrabel
there it is.
was not
well done.
happy?
Control room.
There it
is.
That's fantastic.
There it is.
There he is.
He's got that little.
Okay.
He's got that little neck thing, like.
Yeah.
Yes.
The shake of the head, saying, "Are you kidding me?"
There it is.
We have tried for years to develop our own stars here in Nashville, and now we can't pay, one of the top 5 receivers in football. Now we're letting him go. And again, look, so they get Treylon Burks for him. And I understand, Mike, you know what? There are some teams, I could not shake the feeling that night after that trade was made. I said, this was a Tampa Bay Rays move. That's what it hit me as. The fact that, so the Rays, once they get a gigantic star, are not going to pay him $25 million a year. They're just not going to do it. And that's obviously in baseball. But in football, it struck me that John Robinson and Amy Adams-Strunk had a number, and if they couldn't get to that number, including the guarantee, obviously, if they couldn't get to that number, then they were going to listen to offers for him. And obviously, the Eagles swooped in, and right now, they are on course right now. If A.J. Brown stays healthy, he's on course to have about a 1,400-yard season or 13-something yard season. And Mike, he's averaging almost 16 yards a catch. He is exactly what Jalen Hurts needed. And look, every week you look at it, and every week you look at the impact that A.J. Brown makes in games. And he has been a gigantic help for the Philadelphia Eagles to be sitting there with the number 1 seed right now.
First of all, thank you for calling it a Tampa Bay Rays move and not a Pittsburgh Pirates move, and not reminding me of the fact that the Pirates would do the same damn thing and likely will again and again. You mentioned Jalen Hurts, the friendship between Hurts and Brown, one of the big reasons why Brown ended up in Philadelphia. And it was one of the steps taken in the offseason by Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles and company, to support Jalen Hurts. And look at what we have from Jalen Hurts now. Incredible combination of running and throwing and leadership. A clear MVP candidate as the Eagles move toward the number 1 seed. 157 rush yards and 153 pass yards last week against the Green Bay Packers in prime time. Only the 4th guy in league history to do that. And Peter, I'm just so impressed with everything about Jalen Hurts. And as a runner, he has found a midpoint between the Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, high-end takeoff and the Patrick Mahomes ability to weave and understand where he is, where everyone else is, and where I can go and what I need to do. And he slaps it all into one package. And he's one of the most dangerous offensive threats in the NFL. I think he's underrated, and he's one of the big reasons why they're getting it done. And having A.J. Brown on the field helps as well. And the thing is, you can have one of these 336 rushing yard nights, and because of Hurts' leadership, you're never going to hear a peep from A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith that the ball wasn't thrown enough in their direction.
Mike, it's amazing to me that, I see some of these MVP polls and all that stuff. And I think most people, I think it's very logical to have Patrick Mahomes number 1, which I do. And I have Jalen Hurts number 2. And I see some people who have the odds or whatever it is, having them down 3, 4, or 5. I mean, look, the MVP is a very subjective thing, obviously. You have an opinion about who's the most valuable. But, this is a guy who is morphed from being basically a quarterback who you think that Nick Sirianni wants to be kind of a classic, we want you to run. We want you to have the threat of a run. But we want you to be mostly a pocket guy. Okay, maybe throwing on the run some, but, not necessarily running that much. And in the last 2 weeks, he's run 33 times, and he's averaged 7.5 yards every time he runs the ball. This is the definition of a gigantic weapon in the NFL. When you're running for 240 yards or whatever it is over a 2-game period, you are putting yourself into the Vic stratosphere and into the Lamar Jackson stratosphere. It's kind of funny, into the Justin Fields stratosphere when he plays. But what I look at right now is just how incredibly diverse he can be. And if you right now are a defensive coordinator trying to game plan against the Philadelphia Eagles, you say, you've got one of the great deep threats in football, in A.J. Brown. You've got a guy who can hit him and is proven all year that he can hit him. And then you've also got a guy who runs the ball with as big a threat as Michael Vick ever was in a game. And so that, to me, that is a dangerous, dangerous thing. And that's why, if you're the Tennessee Titans, I'm not exactly sure how you're game planning this game on the defensive side of the ball.
And even if you game plan it, then you got to still implement that plan and stop it, which I think is a different proposition altogether. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.